Welcome to this edition of On Deck with Mercury. I'm Mercury Payton, Town Manager of Vienna, and tonight's topic has to do with the state of our local economy. And joining me this evening is Vienna's Economic Development Director, Nicole Toulouse. Hello, Nicole. How are you?
Hey, very good. Good to be here.
Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and talk economic development. It's one of my favorite topics. Budget is my great favorite topic, but then right after that is economic development, because that's where all the money flows and all of the bustle of commerce within the town. So thanks for all that you do.
Thank you.
So we hear a lot these days about the national economic forecast, and while some areas may be struggling, the local picture here in Vienna is quite good.
Yes.
Is that a good statement? That's a true statement?
Very good statement. We've been really happy about the numbers that we're seeing come in this year on meals tax, sales tax, assessments throughout the entire town. I know that there's a lot of uncertainty throughout the region with what's going on federally, but really what we're seeing on the ground right now in here has been largely positive, and we'll go into some of those numbers in a bit. But here, right in the heart of Church Street, we're at Caffe Amouri, and we've just got so many cute, distinctly unique retailers here that people travel far and wide to come and see. So we're feeling very positive.
Right, and thinking about that, I mean, this is June, so looking at the first 6 months of this year, it's a good snapshot. I mean, we weren't sure about what this was going to look like, but it seems like the last 6 months has been somewhat strong.
Very, and actually, we were planning in the budget, as you were talking about your favorite topic. One of the things that when I came into this role in January that I noticed was that our budget had expected a kind of even meals tax revenue. We're seeing actually a 9.8% increase in average meals tax revenue for the year. So we're doing much better than expected. And so, I think if the last 6 months or so were an indicator for how the rest of the year is going to go, we're pretty happy.
Sure, and I think that coincides with when you started working here. So you can probably take a lot of credit for that uptick there.
No,
so great work. You've already accomplished your.
No, well, it's all of the awesome retailers and businesses within the town, and I know that one of the programs that we did put on earlier this year did exceptionally well. That I'm really happy about. One of our marquee events is Restaurant Week that we put on.
Right.
So Restaurant Week was held in March of this year. We had almost 50 businesses participating in Restaurant Week. And we saw just for our collections in April, which were from March, an increase of 17% in meals tax revenue from the year before.
Wow.
So it's more than the already impressive average. And we saw close to about $50,000 more in just meals tax revenue. That doesn't include sales tax revenue. And then just ongoing marketing that program provides for the people that are participating has been very impressive. So we're happy with the results of that program. And I don't want to say that's because of us, but I will say that it's very easy to market awesome businesses. So
Sure. And maybe talk about one or two elements, like what was made it so special?
Well, really, I mean, it's a giant marketing campaign. And so the folks that decide to promote it on their own, participate in our opportunities to get on TV, to be featured on social, work with influencers. We essentially get them free paid ads for multiple weeks. And so it takes course over 2 weekends and more than a week. And we do press for an entire month, essentially. So we feel like it's doing a pretty good job. And we've gotten really good feedback from all of our survey participants. So we'll make some tweaks here and there next year, but we're overall happy about it.
Anything on the next 6 months or so, anything on the horizon that you think would be a good thing for people to know is coming up in that regard, or similarly?
I would say that if you are here while you're here during the summer, sometimes it gets a little bit slower because people are on vacation. So when you are here, remember to shop local always. There's something for everything that you can possibly think of. But yeah, just remember to shop local.
Fantastic. And Speaking of this local area here where we're actually sitting in Caffe Amouri, right next to the WOND Trail, Town of Vienna has entered into a partnership with Nova Parks.
Yes.
The OND Trails this way, right?
Yes.
To explore a visitor center, a regional visitor center for Northern Virginia. Talk about that.
We are very excited about the fact that Nova Parks has been working with us to figure out where to put their visitor center for the WNOD Trail. The WNOD has about 3 million people that travel on it every single year. And so it's one of our biggest attractions. It is our biggest attraction in the town in terms of bringing people in to a destination. It is our destination marketing. And so when we have an asset like that, making sure that we capture those peoples and visitors and bring them into town to explore beyond just their trip for their bike ride is huge. And so being able to co-locate a visitor center in the heart of Vienna, in our commercial corridor, is a really big opportunity for us to be able to pursue. And so we haven't closed on a property or anything like that, but we're just starting the process of exploring what that could look like. There are 2 properties. One, you might know, there's an old office building right next to the trail that now is not tenanted, might even be blighted. And right across the street from that is the old bank building where Posh is currently. Both of those buildings are owned by the same folks, and the owner is interested in, having both of them sold together. And so the opportunity to have those 2 kind of right in the center of town pieces kind of co-locating with this master vision that's part of Nova Parks' long-term strategic plan right here in the center of town is a huge attraction win for us potentially. So we're just in the beginning phases of figuring out what that may look like in its totality, but just the idea of it is very exciting.
And when I think of a regional visitor center, I'm thinking that no matter where you are in Northern Virginia, if you're on a trail or at one of Nova Parks' locations, they're going to be promoting this regional visitor center, pointing people here. And I also think about the town green, and I think about the trail itself and then Church Street and how it all intersects. Talk a little bit about the economic expectation impact that something like that could have.
It is truly an asset to be able to have a place where people will start and end their ride.
Yeah.
That's another thing is, when people go bike, they'll, start, come back to their car and, maybe grab a beer, maybe shop a little bit, maybe grab a coffee, grab an ice cream, read a book, whatever that looks like. They still want to explore. And frequently that's what they do, but there's really not a lot of integration into our town's commercial core outside of directly adjacent to the trail. And so this is kind of our opportunity to bring people out of that just specific area into our commercial core. And it does literally touch on our town green and a lot of our facilities. And so being able to work with Nova Parks as they're even looking to widen the trail to become dual use. Right now, there's a lot of interference between bikers and walkers and people with strollers and dogs and cars. And none of that is really interfering well with each other. And so being able to kind of master plan this from start to finish is also uniquely great because we get to be a part of that process, and it's not just kind of Nova Parks doing it alone. We get to have a community process as well. So we will have our town business liaison committee and other, pedestrian advisory committee, transportation advisory committee, planning commission. All of those folks are going to be able to provide feedback for this vision.
That's fantastic, and it's a good problem to have all of those user groups all wanting the same space, which brings a lot of people to the downtown area. So we're happy about that. You mentioned commerce, so I think about also Maple Avenue. When I think about Maple Avenue, one may think of Vienna Market. I don't know much about Vienna Market, so tell us a little bit about Vienna Market. I know that it's one of the old MAC projects, and I think there's probably some residential that's already kind of established there, but I think on the retail on the front, on the bottom hasn't really taken hold. So educate me and others about what's going on with Vienna Market.
Great question. We get that question a lot because it kind of is just sitting there. And just for background, the town is encouraging them to move forward on the project as much as we can. Right now, they've built out the space in a way that needs some changes, and they're still figuring that out internally about how to move forward with it. We're providing the support that we can to get them moving on it and working with them as we can for finding a tenant. But I think until they've finished building it out, it's been difficult for them to be able to find a tenant. So we are working with them to try to get them to a place that is marketable. So it's still a work in progress, but not for a lack of effort.
Sure. And speaking of finding tenants, Vienna's vacancy rate is rather low.
Yes.
So what do you attribute that to? What makes Vienna so attractive? Like, why is that the case?
Great question. I mean, when you think of our commercial core, you think Maple Ave is really Chain Bridge. It's 123, which is a state highway. And
That's
so
true.
you have
That's true.
a lot of traffic. And when people are looking to locate, especially retail, they're looking at what those eyeballs are doing. And you get a lot of eyeballs in our retail locations on Maple. And we have a really great mix of being close enough to Tyson's and being close to these commercial cores that are a bit larger, but also having this more suburban feel where you feel like you can pull up and park. And so it is very attractive for both unique and distinct, like boutique-y sort of shops, but also, bigger scale retailers. We see a really good mix, I think, in the town of both of those. In terms of vacancy rates, I know that was something that you asked about. We have one of the lowest, if not the lowest in the region. What we announced at the end of the year leading into this fiscal year is that our vacancy rate was sitting at 4.7%.
4.7%.
Very low for overall, If you're looking at our peers of similar sized jurisdictions, the closest to us, Fairfax City, is at 6, Falls Church is at 8.5, and Herndon's at 13. So us being down at 4.7% vacancy is extremely impressive. Also considering the fact that our rent is also kind of on the mid-higher end range. So the fact that we are able to maintain low vacancy and higher rents is really good for the assessed value of the buildings as well.
Wow, that is fantastic. And I think about the Cedar Park Shopping Center, and over there's a formerly held space by CVS that has a new tenant.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that special someone.
We are excited to see Ace Hardware going into that space. I think that we've heard from a lot of people that they're interested in having more like retail-y hardware. We obviously have Sheets, which is a bit more like big commercial hardware, but being able to have a local hardware store was kind of a missing retail link in our town. And so they've started their lease, and they're going through their build out, and hopefully around Labor Day actually open doors. So Aces are generally I love their structure. They're kind of a co-op ownership structure. So the employees own the store itself, and so it adds to that kind of hometown-y feel.
Wow. So how does it happen where they locate here? I mean, does someone kind of say, "Hey, Nicole, can you bring them here?" Or do they find the space themselves? Do they have brokers? Because my wife all the time tells me about different shops she wants here.
Oh my gosh.
And so should I just tell you, and
you should tell me.
You just make it happen?
Well, it's funny because we do actually keep a priority list of vacancies within the town. This one was able to become tenanted before we had to interject ourselves, and so the brokers themselves that own the retail center were able to market it successfully. Having a space that big is a priority for bigger brokers. So they were able to do it themselves. There are other vacancies within the town that we're aware of that we want to tenant. And so we do proactive business attraction efforts And if there are people that your wife or whomever in your life is interested in attracting, we will find the contact info. If anyone in the community is interested in seeing something, let us know. And we will try to pitch our location as best we can.
Fantastic. So what else is on the horizon economic development wise? Anything that you can tell us? I know there's probably stuff you can't tell us, but whatever you can, maybe give us some hints.
So I'm trying to think through some exciting things, because you talked about Vienna Market, and some other things that we get asked about frequently are Fallen Lane and 444. So Fallen Lane is the corporate park area of the town, and there is one major vacancy there, which is an office building that's been untenanted for almost a decade at this point. And so we are proactively working with the owner, who I think was kind of in limbo about a couple of things because they had different offers on the table.
Sure.
We had a work session recently that kind of prompted the owner to start real conversations with people that had put in bids onto the building. And so we have heard from them that they're going to be actively considering those in the very short term. So we're happy about the movement on that. Nothing to announce at this point, but we're happy that that's moving, which is positive. And then the other thing that we get asked about is the giant lot at 444 that is still sitting vacant. It's another project that was approved under the previous MAC overlay on Maple that allowed for the 4 stories. Since that time when it was approved, literally months later, interest rates changed, material costs changed, and the financial feasibility of that project really was thrown into a loop. We are engaged with the owner about maintaining that site as being at minimum safe and not ugly to look at, and trying to make sure that that is at minimum up to snub. In a more proactive sense, though, we're also working with the owner to make sure that they have what they need to either see their vision through or find other interested parties who we've, offered to them to kind of move forward in a different direction with the previous approvals. So we're working with them. It's a little bit slower because of a change in the financial markets right now, but we are in contact with the owner on that project as well.
Fantastic. And maybe we'll end with this. I mean, I know that let's talk a little bit about relationships. So I know that you went on a national trip here recently. You're connected with Fairfax County's Economic Development Department. We have a TBLC here and a VBA. Talk a little bit about how these relationships that you foster and work with, talk about those, the importance of those, and how you kind of work within those contexts.
Yeah, so economic development, I would say, has 3 main components. There is business attraction, business retention, and business expansion. And so in terms of business retention and expansion, we work with the TBLC, the Town Business Liaison Committee, to get a better understanding of the state of our businesses and things that concern them about, what is impacting their ability to sell and do well and be prosperous in our community. And so any way that they're able to relay that information to us to make sure that they're, able to succeed as best they can in our community is how I like to be able to, use them as a sounding board, whether that's parking study or letters and feedback on Restaurant Week or other initiatives or taxes and et cetera within the town. They're able to communicate to us as staff and to our council in that capacity. The VBA is part of what I would describe as ecosystem building and that expansion portion, local networking, trying to get in front of the right people, doing B2B sales. VBA, the Vienna Business Association, is really wonderful to get involved in that capacity. Also, that's a lot more hyper local, I would say. In the more regional sense, there's also the Northern Virginia Chamber of Commerce, which is more Fairfax County Tyson's oriented, but also geared towards Vienna folks. And then the business attraction efforts is where we are heavily partnered with Fairfax County and the state of Virginia's Virginia Economic Development Partnership. So VDP sends us leads for big projects that might be a good fit for the town, and we work with Fairfax County to kind of put our best foot forward for those bigger attraction efforts.
Sure. And so when they come to you and say, as local businesses and say, if the town would do a process a little bit differently, it'd be easier for them to do their business. So do you get into fistfights with planning and zoning and different departments and saying, hey, change your practices that'll help the small businesses?
Well, what's great about our town is that we don't have to fist fight with planning and zoning, and they're very agreeable. I was joking with our director of planning and zoning, David, and I was like, I really want to make sure that economic development does not play the role of regulator. And he was like, I was like, that's you guys. And he was like, I have to do that, but I don't see myself that way. And so as much as, that their role is to enforce and regulate various aspects of town business, they're also there to hear and be receptive. So the more that we're able to work proactively and provide a path forward that is feasible, I think that between our town council and staff, you have a group of people that are really excited about trying to help businesses. And so again, the committee, like the TBLC is vital in just helping us understand the functional day-to-day of where to improve, because I think everyone's on board to try to make that happen.
And you're a fantastic conduit, and you work well with the team, the leadership team, and everyone with the town wants the small businesses and all businesses to succeed. So I really appreciate all of your hard work to
Thank you.
Make us aware of what processes need to be improved.
We try.
So is there anything else that you think that's important for everyone to hear about before we end tonight?
I would say, the takeaway from every conversation I always have is shop local. Walk around your town whenever you're on a walk, explore the WNOD, come out here onto Church, go on to Maple, and, just shop and explore. There's so many places that you probably haven't tried recently. If not ever, there's always something new opening. So try something new, try a longtime favorite, and that's what I'll leave you with.
Okay, well, thanks so much.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us tonight for On Deck with Mercury. Hope you have a wonderful and enjoyable spring and summer, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot. Take care.